Hi guys, Randall here. Today I want to talk about manual gameplay and more how to get into manual gameplay if you've never done it before. For I would say the first time since I've started playing War of the Visions. In the last class match season, while I was publishing videos and etc., quite a few players reached out to me telling me that they would be interested in trying out manual eventually. And I feel like if there's an audience that's Smasher for that, why not make a video on how to get started? What are some tips to begin playing this way? So that's what I'll be talking about today. It's a bit of an informal video, no presentation built for it. I just want to talk about my experience, how I prepare for a class match, and just general tips if you want to build your account towards this. So the first thing on the list, I would say, is to get Macherie's TMR. If you've watched my games, or really any manual matches, almost every team, like at least 90% of teams, are running Macherie's TMR because it is a really good item if you can activate whenever you want. So let's take a look at that very quickly. But what that piece of gear does, I really should sort things better here, is it's going to give you an ability that heals for a pretty good amount in an AoE, but also gives you a 30% barrier on all these people for 3 times for 30%. So it is extremely impactful. One of the big differences between manual and auto is you very rarely one-shot people in manual, and the reason for that is this item. So with this barrier, typically the 30% reduction is just enough to keep even squishy characters alive unless they're being hit by somebody who's a direct counter, or there was some specific setup where the enemy had a lot of offensive buffs. So this has a major impact on the game, and if your account doesn't own it, you start with a major disadvantage. I still see a couple players going in with Ayaka's TMR or even no barrier TMR, and yeah, just a major drawback. And the good thing is, you can actually get Macherie's TMR without spending any Viz for it. All you need is either friend points or guild points. Let's take a look. I think it's friend points. So you can get Macherie as a unit with friend points and then a bunch of her shards every day, as long as you have your friend slots and keep them fresh. So just do this. There's no reason not to have the TMR, and once you have it, max it. There's going to be someone on your team that wants it, even if it's not on a mage, just the barrier makes it worth it. So first, a little word of advice. Then the second thing I want to talk about is using the top-down view. Quite often when I have those videos, players are telling me that the top-down view isn't as entertaining or doesn't look as good. I know it's not as beautiful. I know it's not as intuitive. When I first started playing manual, I was not doing top-down view, and the thing is, it's really hard to count squares and be sure what is the exact distance between 2 units if you don't do that. There's going to be obstacles in your ways, there's going to be some other issues, so you really should get used to switching in between the different views. Otherwise, you will be in a pretty big bit of trouble once in a while. So I recommend you get used to that. And because really, eventually, once you know every unit's range and etc., it just gives you a good idea of, am I going to get hit from here? Am I still safe? And it's a lot easier to position accordingly. So I guess this takes me to the next point. One thing that manual players need, if they want to compete at least like in class matches and trying to get high ranks, they need good game knowledge. The biggest thing, if you don't want to learn every single unit's kits, because that is going to take a while and it is going to take a bit of studying, I recommend you at least know what is the maximum range on every unit that's not an archer. If it's an enemy archer, just assume you're in their range no matter what, and that's pretty usually the way I do it, because I don't count Corwell's range, for example. But I know that Terra can only hit me from 5 squares away, and she has a movement of 3, so that means she has an 8 square range overall. And I am able to know the range of every single unit, because whenever a unit is released, that's the first information I look up, is how many squares away can I get messed up, or can I get hit by these units? Now, there is a resource, if you don't know it, called War of the Vision Calc, where you have really good breakdowns of every single abilities in the game, every single unit, their stats, and etc. I use this to study units all the time, so that even if I don't own a unit, when I fight one, I'm able to have a general grasp of their kit. And whenever I play a match, I have the War of the Vision Calc open to the side. So if there's a Lara Croft that I haven't seen often and I'm not sure what she has, I can, with a few seconds in my turn, go take a look at that and immediately be more aware of what the threats are for me. And then if you don't know where the vision calc, I'll put it in the description below. I highly recommend you take a look at that. It's very, very useful. So the next step is going to be practice. And, you know, free match is not, in my opinion, the best way to practice. First of all, it's really hard, in my experience, to get matches in free match. Whenever I queue up for it, it just takes a super long time. I'm trying to get an opponent to fight me, and we'll do that as I speak here, but more often than not, it's not even going to give me anybody, and when it does, it's often an enemy that just wants those points, just wants to cheese, so they're going to use strategies that are not fun to fight against, like the cheese blade combo where you play 3 turns in a row and just wipe the enemy team before they even get a turn. So free match is not the way I like to practice. Instead, there are a bunch of different Discord communities you can join that are oriented towards live PvP, and in which you can speak with people, organize matches, and have a really good time overall. So I'll be linking 3 of them in the comments. There's the Hakuten, that's a guild that's mainly revolving around live PvP fans, so you can join that server. There is the live PvP server created by Donald Boone, and then even in my own Discord server, there are people discussing, and there is a match chat where you can ask for scrims with other players. More often than not, we know what the map is going to be ahead of time. We know what the rule set is going to be ahead of time, so you could set up matches that emulate the rule set and the map of the class match and practice for it. I do that a ton. I'm going to test my team compositions before I go into the fights, and generally I have a good idea of how I'm going to play out my matches in every season before it happens, so I don't have to wing it, or I won't be too surprised when a situation shows up. Then I wish I found a match to talk about this, but the timer in-game it's very important to know how to handle it. When you take a turn, you only have 10 seconds to either move your unit in the map or open the ability menu. And when you move on the map, you get 10 more seconds, and if you open the ability menu, you get another 10 seconds. So technically, the first thing you want to do in every single turn is move, open the menu, and then you have a whole 30 seconds to think, look at the enemy team, and etc. So that is definitely a tip, is don't think at the beginning of your turn. Open everything and then start thinking, considering your options. That is going to be very, very important. Another small tip that's in the same logic is when a fight begins, on your first turn, use your first ability, open the map, and then take a look at the enemy team's vision cards. Sometimes they're going to have a surprise in there. They're going to be running a vision card that you didn't expect. Say it's an enemy light team and you're a missile attackers. You need to check whether they have the Carbuncle vision card or not, because that changes their missile resistance a lot and it's going to impact your game plan. So the first thing to do in a fight, get your top-down view, get your extra time by opening every menu, and then check the enemy team's vision cards. And with this, you're going to have a good grasp of what is going to happen. Then I've talked about all of this. The other point I want to talk about is how do you build a team, right? I generally have a strategy when I'm building a team, and for this purpose, I'm asking myself 3 big questions. So I'm going to have an idea of a team. For example, this is what I'm considering to run for the next season. So I could be running something like this, and my questions are, number 1, can I deal with missile teams? So if I'm fighting a team with a Frederica and a Cloud that just wants to stay in the back, or a Jaden that's getting hasted, do I have a way to crack that team? If my answer to this is no, I am never going to run that team. Because there are always going to be missile teams, there are going to be some teams where people just wait in the corner for you to advance, and if you don't have a tool to engage on them, you are going to lose. That is the main reason why my team from the previous season had Ketone in, and it was really just so I had a way to fight these guys. I had somebody that could close in with good missile resistance and then stop one of them or disrupt their game plan. Without her, I would not have met that condition of being able to close in on missile, and I would have not chosen that team for that season. The second question I ask myself is, can I deal with evasion? Evasion is an automatic loss when you fight them if you don't have a specific way to beat them. It could be just very high accuracy across the board if you have a team that can get accurate, or it can be a bunch of guaranteed hits. But if you have neither of those, for me, the team you're going to run is not competitive. It cannot work because you need win streaks in order to have a high amount of points because of the win streak system in class matches. And so if there is a scenario that whenever you match them, you lose, it's not a team that's that viable. Then, so second question is, how do you deal with a team that can dodge a lot? in this specific Earth example, I have 2 people that have 3 guaranteed hits and a fairly accurate Catone, so I had a couple tools to play with. If I was looking at my other Fire team, and I'm not sure where I put it, so let me find that as I go, I would have Terra, who has the guaranteed hits, 6 casts, so can use it very reliably, and then Setya has 130 extra accuracy with this and a accuracy up rune set, so she can fairly reliably hit evasion units, but it's not the best, and I might end up not picking this team because Setya isn't accurate enough, and I might just lose to evasion matchups if I have a single unit that can do something against them. After these 2, the next question is, am I fine with losing to the counter element match? So in my Earth team, that was a big question because wind is rather popular. So as I said, you need win streaks if you want to have high points, right? So if you lose every time you match your opposite element, you are in a lot of trouble. You're going to break the streak and you're not going to rank that high. If you're thinking about going at a super high rank, if you're just thinking about trying class matches, it may not be that big of an issue. But for me, do I have a chance against the counter element is a big question. In this specific case, my answer was not if it's the perfect win team, but if it's ish win team, then Catone gives me a chance because of her status effects. The perfect win team, though, completely obliterates me. So I had to ask myself, am I fine with losing that matchup? And the answer I came up was, yes I am, if I win every single other matchup. So the War of the Visions game, in my opinion, is currently mature enough where no team will absolutely destroy any other. I think the safest team to build is a light team, because light and dark inherently don't have counter elements, so they don't have a matchup where they're just going to lose. So that is a huge deal. But if you're using any other element, you have to be aware that you're going to eventually fight your counter, and you're going to drop a match once in a while if they play it right. So that is a huge risk. It's not one you can completely mitigate, again, unless you're going light or dark, but it is something to keep in mind, and sometimes you might want to have a unit like Catone, or a unit that can potentially stop or do something that's disruptive for your opposite element and give you a little bit of a chance to win these matchups. And then finally, let's discuss what makes a unit good for manual. And I think there's really 3 factors when I look at a unit that's going to make me want them or not from a manual standpoint. The first, most important factor of them all is their mobility. Can this unit cross the map well? A unit that has move 3, jump 1, like Terra for example, is a unit that's going to be very hard to use. Any enemy that has more movement or more range than you will have the initiative against that unit. They're going to be able to get the first hit off, they're going to be able to block you off some squares of the map because of their longer reach. And so having good mobility is extremely key. It's part of the reason, again, why this team has worked so well for me previous season, is my lower movement and jump was 4 and 2. So I recommend getting used to focusing on units with a lot of movement if that's what you want. Anybody that has the ninja sub job is a really good option because that changes their 3 and 1 for a 4 and 2, and so with Shikuchi, and that makes them extremely competitive. So this is first step, mobility. The second thing is, can they again deal with evasion? Just because having an auto loss scenario is not good, it's the reason why a unit like Setya, for example, that has super good range and then a decent amount of movement as well, because she has jump too, isn't that good in manual, is because she loses to any evasion matchup. So do they have guaranteed hits? Do they have good mobility? And then the final thing I look at is, do they have a win condition? Like an ability that's so good that if they get it off, they just win the fight. And that's the case of for a unit like Oberon. His limit break is so damaging that if he gets it off on 1 or 2 people, these guys are generally dead, and then you get a massive edge. Noctis also has one of these deciding abilities, and it's actually his Power of the True Kings, because the Arminger attack can proc Courage, can proc re-raises, and this makes it a top tier ability. There are a lot of units that have well-rounded kits, but no decisive move to use, and because of that, they're not that competitive. So generally, when I'll build a team, I have a game plan in mind. I know I can deal with either evasion or missile teams. I know I have good mobility to get around the map, and then that means I have a good basis for a team. So I'm going to stop this here. I feel like it's a topic I could talk about for a very, very long time, and I'm considering doing a manual unit tier list in the near future where I talk about this stuff. But if you're interested in eventually trying out manual, please do join the Discords. I am not the best manual player, nor the most knowledgeable. You'll find people that are really, really into it in there, and you can learn a lot from them as well, because it's a very nice community where everybody just wants to have fun and wants the others to progress. But if you have any specific questions for me, please don't hesitate to add them in the comment section, and I'll take a look and answer whenever I can. And then outside of that, thank you so much for watching as usual, and I'll see you soon.